Hello, guys! Let's continue Joseph's story. Today, chapter 41, okay? Joseph interprets the king's dreams. After 2 years had passed, the king of Egypt dreamed that he was standing by the Nile River when 7 cows, fat and sleek, came up out of the river and began to feed on the grass. Then 7 other cows came up. They were thin and bony. They came and stood by the other cows on the river bank, and the thin cows ate up the fat cows. Then the king woke up. He fell asleep again and had another dream. 7 heads of grain, full and ripe, were growing on the stalk. Then 7 other heads of grain sprouted, thin and scorched by the desert wind. And the thin heads of grain swallowed the full ones. The king woke up and realized that he had been dreaming. In the morning he was worried, so he sent for all the magicians and wise men of Egypt. He told them his dreams, but no one could explain them. Then the wine steward said to the king, "I must confess today that I have done wrong. You were angry with the chief baker and me, and you put us in prison in the house of the captain of the guard. One night, each of us had a dream, and the dreams had different meanings. A young Hebrew was there with us, a slave of the captain of the guard. We told him our dreams, and he interpreted them for us. Things turned out just as he said. You restored me to my position, but you executed the baker." The king sent for Joseph, and he was immediately brought from the prison. After he had shaved and changed his clothes, he came into the king's presence. The king said to him, I have had a dream, and no one can explain it. I have been told that you can interpret dreams." Joseph answered, "I cannot, your majesty, but God will give you a favorable interpretation." The king said, "I dreamed that I was standing on the bank of the Nile, when 7 cows, fat and sleek, came up out of the river and began feeding on the grass. Then 7 other cows came up, which were thin and bony. They were the poorest cows I have ever seen anywhere in Egypt. The thin cows ate up the fat ones, but no one would have known it, because they looked just as bad as before. Then I woke up. I also dreamed that I saw 7 heads of grain which were full and ripe, growing on one stalk. Then 7 heads of grain sprouted, thin and scorched by the desert wind, and the thin heads of grain swallowed the full ones. I told the dreams to the magicians, but none of them could explain them to me." Joseph said to the king, "The 2 dreams mean the same thing. God has told you what he is going to do. The 7 fat cows are 7 years, and the 7 full heads of grain are also 7 years. They have the same meaning. The 7 thin cows, which came up later, and the 7 thin heads of grain scorched by the desert wind, are 7 years of famine. It is just as I told you. God has shown you what he is going to do. There will be 7 years of great plenty in all the land of Egypt. After that, there will be 7 years of famine, and all the good years will be forgotten, because the famine will ruin the country. The time of plenty will be entirely forgotten. because the famine which follows will be so terrible. The repetition of your dreams means that the matter is fixed by God and that He will make it happen in the near future. Now you should choose some man with wisdom and insight and put him in charge of the country. You must also appoint other officials and take a fifth of the crops during the 7 years of plenty. Order them to collect all the food during the good years that are coming, and give them authority to store up grain in the cities and guard it. The food will be a reserve supply for the country during the 7 years of famine, which are going to come on Egypt. In this way, the people will not starve. Joseph is made governor over Egypt. The king and his officials approved this plan, and he said to them, "We will never find a better man than Joseph, a man who has God's Spirit in him." The king said to Joseph, "God has shown you all this, so it is obvious that you have greater wisdom and insight than anyone else. I will put you in charge of my country, and all my people will obey your orders. Your authority will be second only to mine. I will now appoint you governor over all Egypt." The king removed from his finger the ring engraved with the royal seal and put it on Joseph's finger. He put a fine linen robe on him and placed a gold chain around his neck. He gave him the second royal chariot to ride in, and his guard of honor went ahead of him and cried out, "Make way, make way!" And so Joseph was appointed governor over all Egypt. The king said to him, "I am the king, and no one in all Egypt shall so much as lift a hand or a foot without your permission." He gave Joseph the Egyptian name Zaphenath Paneah, and he gave him a wife, Asenath, the daughter of Potipharah, a priest in the city of Heliopolis. Joseph was 30 years old when he began to serve the king of Egypt. He left the king's court and traveled all around the land. During the 7 years of plenty, the land produced abundant crops, all of which Joseph collected and stored in the cities. In each city, he stored the food from the fields around it. There was so much grain that Joseph stopped measuring it. It was like the sand of the sea. Before the years of famine came, Joseph had 2 sons by Asenath. He said, "God has made me forget all my sufferings and all my father's family." So he named his first son Manasseh. He also said, "God has given me children in the land of my trouble." So he named his second son Ephraim. The 7 years of plenty that the land of Egypt had enjoyed came to an end, and the 7 years of famine began, just as Joseph had said. There was famine in every other country, but there was food throughout Egypt. When the Egyptians began to be hungry, they cried out to the king for food. So he ordered them to go to Joseph and do what he told them. The famine grew worse and spread over the whole country. So Joseph opened all the storehouses and sold grain to the Egyptians. People came to Egypt from all over the world to buy grain from Joseph, because the famine was severe everywhere. Yes, this is chapter 41. I have some comments. I'd like to say something about verse 16. Joseph answered, I cannot, your majesty, but God will give a favorable interpretation. As I read yesterday the second chapter of Philippians, verses 13, do you remember? Joseph knew that everything that he had, the power he had to interpret dreams, came from God. So it's wise to be humble and know from where your intelligence comes. Okay? Be wise and humble. Give the glory to who has it and who is able to give it to you. What's more? In verse okay, here when the king gives him the ring, when he gives the car and show the whole city who is the new governor, this is God honoring him. Do you remember what were the trouble he had? He had so much injustice from his family, from the country where he was born, and now God is honoring him. And this is so beautiful. What I think most beautiful here is in verse 45-46, when the king gives an Egyptian name to Joseph, and the name was Zaphenath Paneah, which I read in a Bible of study, that the meaning of it was something like God speaks and he listens too. The honor of being a person who listens to what God is saying and being recognized by that, being called by that, is so great. Imagine you in your life, in your daily situations, daily routines, someone comes and calls you, hey, God speaks and you hear. That's so beautiful. Can you imagine having this kind of relationship with God? This is insane. I would be very honored having been attributed such a name. That's very beautiful. That's what I think most beautiful here. The greater honor he had was this one. More than having the ring, which meant like a signature of the kingdom, of this kingdom, and being presented to the whole people. This is the new governor. What did the person said? Open way, something like that. The great honor, in my opinion, was to be called a person who God speaks, and this person is able to understand what God is saying. That's huge. One last thing I would like to mention here is about Joseph's sons, the names. As you realized, names had a great meaning for them. Manasseh, the first son, the pronunciation in Hebrew was similar to forget, to the verb forget. So it was like saying, now I can forget what happened in the past and just go on with my life and just to do what God wants and live and be a blessing to the place where I am. So he forgot, he put the name of his son as I can forget what happened in the past. And the second son, Ephraim, the meaning was the same thing. The pronunciation in Hebrew was similar to give fruits, give fruits. So he's not like attached to his past, and now he's seeing what God is doing with him through Joseph's life. You understand? My suggestion for you is to pay attention to the words you use, how you call things, how you call situations that you are living, even though they are difficult. Don't curse, because what we say really defines that we are living. So pay attention to your words, and if you dare, if you dare, please God to be this person that can be a blessing wherever you are, and people around recognize you as the person who hears God's voice, who understands what He's saying, who has this close relationship and is able to hear and follow His advices and His instructions and what His word says. Um, that's it for today. I hope you have a very good day. I don't know if you are listening to this audio or if you are watching this video. I don't know what time, but I hope you have a great time, and I encourage you to keep on reading the Bible. If not reading to yourself alone, you can use these videos I'm releasing here in YouTube, in Instagram, and Facebook, and other social media. Use this to learn more from God, because He is our Father, He's our Creator. When He gave Jesus to die for us, He meant to provide us with a good life here on earth, and we should make it worth. We should. You should fight for your life and ask God to give you the life that Jesus died for. Okay? See you tomorrow. Please God. Bye bye.